Good evening. We are back for night 3. We're going to just jump right into this. I'm going to raise these set apart hands up high to the sky and give all praise, glory, and esteem to the Most High, Yahovah, through his only begotten Son, our Messiah, Yeshua. Hallelujah. Thank you for walking that walk, talking that talk, being the most righteous image bearer that there ever was, is, and will be. Yeshua, thank you for your love, mercy, and grace. Thank you for thinking of me and each and every one of my brothers and sisters, and all those who I have not met yet, all the kadosh ones, all those who have yet to find you, who will find you because they've been called by the Father through you. Thank you for what you did for us. Thank you for the Ruach HaKodesh. Thank you for being you. Hallelujah. We bless you. We praise you. We thank you. And in your mighty name and by your blood, we worship you, Yah. Hallelujah. Amen, amen. So without further ado, we're going to jump right into Genesis chapter 46. And Yisrael set out with all that he had and came to Beersheba and slaughtered slaughterings to the Elohim of his father Isaac. And Elohim spoke to Yisrael in visions of the night and said, Jacob, Jacob. And he said, here I am. And he said, I am the Elohim of your father. Do not be afraid to go down to Egypt, for I shall make you there into a great nation. I myself am going down with you to Egypt, and I myself shall certainly bring you up again. And let Joseph put his hand on your eyes. And Jacob rose up from Beersheba. And the sons of Yisrael brought their father Jacob and their little ones and their wives in the wagons which Pharaoh had sent to transport him. And they took their livestock and their property which they had acquired in the land of Canaan, and came into Egypt, Jacob and all his seed with him. His sons and his sons' sons, his daughters and his sons' daughters, and all his seed he brought with him to Egypt. And these were the names of the children of Yisrael, Jacob and his sons, who came into Egypt. Reuben was Jacob's firstborn. And the sons of Reuben, Enoch and Palu, and Hetzron and Carmi. And the sons of Simon, Yemuel and Yamin and Ohad and Yachin and Sohar. And Shaul, son of the Canaanite woman. And the sons of Levi, Gershon, Kehat, and Merari. And the sons of Judah, Er, and Onan, and Shelah, and Peretz, and Zerach. But and Onan died in the land of Canaan. And the sons of Peretz were Hetzron and Hamul. And the sons of Issachar, Tola, and Puah, and Yov, and Shimron. And the sons of Zebulun, Sered, and Elon, and Yachleel. These were the sons of Leah, whom she bore to Jacob in Padan Aram with his daughter Dinah. All the beings, his sons and daughters, were 33. And the sons of Gad, Tsiphon, and Hagi, Shuni, and Etzbon, Eri, and Arodi, and Arieli. And the sons of Asher, Yimnah, and Yishwa, and Yishwi, and Beriah, and Serach, their sister. And the sons of Beriah, Heber, and Malchiel. These were the sons of Zilpah, whom Laban gave to Leah, his daughter. And these she bore to Jacob, 16 beings. The sons of Rachel, Jacob's wife, Joseph and Benjamin. And to Joseph in the land of Egypt were born Manasseh and Ephraim, whom Asenat, the daughter of Potipharah, priest of On, bore to him. And the sons of Benjamin, Bela, and Becher, and Ashbel, and Gerah, and Naaman, Ehi, and Rosh, Mupim, and Chupim, and Ard. These were the sons of Rachel, who were born to Jacob, 14 beings in all. And the son of Dan, Hushim. And the sons of Naphtali, Yatsel, and Guni, and Yetzer, and Shilem. These were the sons of Bilhah, whom Laban gave to Rachel, his daughter, and she bore these to Jacob, 7 beings in all. All the beings who went with Jacob to Egypt, who came from his body, besides Jacob's sons' wives, were 66 beings in all. And the sons of Joseph, who were born to him in Egypt, were 2 beings. All the beings at the house of Jacob who went to Egypt were 70. And he sent Judah before him to Joseph to point out before him the way to Goshen. And they came to the land of Goshen. And Joseph made ready his chariot and went up to Goshen to meet his father, Yisrael. And he appeared to him and fell on his neck and wept on his neck a long time. And Yisrael said to Joseph, now let me die, since I have seen your face, that you are still alive. And Joseph said to his brothers and to his father's household, I am going up to inform Pharaoh and to say to him, my brothers and those of my father's house who were in the land of Canaan have come to me. And the men are shepherds, that they have been men of livestock, and they have brought their flocks and their herds and all that they have. And it shall be when Pharaoh calls you and says, what is your occupation? That you shall say, your servants have been men of livestock from our youth, even till now, both we and also our fathers, so that you dwell in the land of Goshen, for every shepherd is an abomination to the Egyptians. Genesis chapter 47. Then Joseph went and spoke to Pharaoh and said, my father and my brothers, their flocks and their herds and all that they possess have come from the land of Canaan, and see, they are in the land of Goshen. And he took 5 men from among his brothers and presented them to Pharaoh. And Pharaoh said to his brothers, what is your occupation? And they said to Pharaoh, your servants are shepherds, both we and also our fathers. And they said to Pharaoh, we have come to dwell in the land, because there is no pasture for your servants' flocks, for the scarcity of food is severe in the land of Canaan. And now please let your servants dwell in the land of Goshen. And Pharaoh spoke to Joseph, saying, your father and your brothers have come to you. The land of Egypt is before you. Settle your father and brothers in the best of the land. Let them dwell in the land of Goshen. And if you know of capable men among them, then make them the chief herdsmen over my livestock. And Joseph brought in his father Jacob and set him before Pharaoh. And Jacob blessed Pharaoh. And Pharaoh said to Jacob, how old are you? And Jacob said to Pharaoh, the days of the years of my sojournings are 130 years. Few and evil have been the days of the years of my life, and they have not reached the days of the years of the life of my fathers in the days of their sojournings. And Jacob blessed Pharaoh and went out from before Pharaoh. So Joseph settled his father and his brothers and gave them a possession in the land of Egypt, in the best of the land, in the land of Ramesses, as Pharaoh had commanded. And Joseph provided his father and his brothers and all his father's household with bread for the mouth of the little ones. Now there was no bread in all the land, because the scarcity of food was very severe, and the land of Egypt and all the land of Canaan became exhausted from the scarcity of food. And Joseph gathered up all the silver that was found in the land of Egypt and in the land of Canaan for the grain which they bought. And Joseph brought the silver into Pharaoh's house. And when the silver was all spent in the land of Egypt and in the land of Canaan, all the Egyptians came to Joseph and said, give us bread, for why should we die in your presence? For the silver is gone. And Joseph said, give your livestock, and I give you bread for your livestock, if the silver is gone. So they brought their livestock to Joseph, and Joseph gave them bread in exchange for the horses, and for the flocks they owned, and for the herds they owned, and for the donkeys. Thus he fed them with bread in exchange for all their livestock that year. And when that year had ended, they came to him the next year and said to him, we do not hide from my master that our silver is all spent, and my master also has the livestock we owned. There has not been left any before my master but our bodies and our lands. Why should we die before your eyes, both we and our land? Buy us and our land for bread, and let us and our land be servants of Pharaoh, and give us seed, and let us live and not die, and let the land not lie waste. And Joseph bought the entire land of Egypt for Pharaoh, because every man of the Egyptians sold his field, because the scarcity of food was severe upon them, and the land came to be Pharaoh's. And as for the people, he moved them into the cities from one end of the borders of Egypt to the other end. Only the ground of the priests he did not buy, for the priests had from what Pharaoh gave them by law, and they ate that which Pharaoh gave them by law. Therefore they did not sell their ground. And Joseph said to the people, look, I have bought you and your land today for Pharaoh. Look, here is seed for you, and you shall sow the land. And it shall be that in the harvest you shall give 1/5 to Pharaoh, and 4/5 is your own, as seed for the field and for your food, for those of your households, and as food for your little ones. And they said, you have saved our lives. Let us find grace in the eyes of my master, and we shall become Pharaoh's servants. And Joseph made it a law over the land of Egypt to this day, that Pharaoh should have 1/5, except for the ground of the priests only, which did not become Pharaoh's. And Israel dwelt in the land of Egypt, in the land of Goshen, and they had possession there, and were fruitful, and increased exceedingly. And Jacob lived in the land of Egypt 17 years. So the length of Jacob's life was 147 years. And the time for Israel to die drew near, and he called his son Joseph and said to him, now if I have found grace in your eyes, please put your hand under my thigh, and show loving commitment and truth to me. Please do not bury me in Egypt, but I shall lie with my fathers, and you shall take me up out of Egypt and bury me in their burial place. And he said, I do as you have said. And he said, swear to me. And he swore to him, and Israel bowed himself on the head of the bed. Genesis chapter 48. And after these events, it came to be that it was said to Joseph, see, your father is sick. And he took with him his 2 sons, Manasseh and Ephraim. And Jacob was told, see, your son Joseph is coming to you, And Israel strengthened himself and sat up on the bed. And Jacob said to Joseph, El Shaddai appeared to me at Luz in the land of Canaan and blessed me and said to me, see, I am making you fruitful and shall increase you and make of you an assembly of peoples and give this land to your seed after you as an everlasting possession. And now, your two sons, Ephraim and Manasseh, who were born to you in the land of Egypt, before I came to you in Egypt, are mine. As Reuben and Simon, they are mine. Your offspring, whom you shall bring forth after them, are yours, and let them be called by the name of their brothers in their inheritance. And I, when I came from Padan, Rachel died beside me in the land of Canaan on the way when there was but a little distance to go to Ephrat. And I buried her there on the way to Ephrat, that is Bethlehem. And Israel saw Joseph's sons and said, who are these? And Joseph said to his father, they are my sons, whom Elohim has given me in this place. And he said, please bring them to me and let me bless them. And the eyes of Israel were dim with age, and he was unable to see. And he drew near them, and he kissed them and embraced them. And Israel said to Joseph, I had not thought to see your face, but see, Elohim has also shown me your seed. So Joseph brought them from between his knees, and he bowed down with his face to the earth. And Joseph took them both, Ephraim with his right hand toward Israel's left hand, and Manasseh with his left hand toward Israel's right hand, and brought them near him. And Israel stretched out his right hand and laid it on Ephraim's head, who was the younger, and his left hand on Manasseh's head, consciously directing his hands, for Manasseh was the firstborn. And he blessed Joseph and said, the Elohim whom my fathers Abraham and Isaac walked, the Elohim who has fed me all my life long to this day, the messenger who has redeemed me from all evil, bless the youths, and let my name be called upon them, and the name of my fathers Abraham and Isaac, and let them increase to a multitude in the midst of the earth. And when Joseph saw that his father laid his right hand on the head of Ephraim, it was evil in his eyes, and he took hold of his father's hand to remove it from the head of Ephraim to the head of Manasseh. And Joseph said to his father, not so, my father, for this one is the firstborn. Put your right hand on his head. But his father refused and said, I know, my son, I know. He also becomes a people, and he is also great. And yet his younger brother is greater than he, and his seed is to become the completeness of the nations. And he blessed them on that day, saying, in you Yisrael shall bless, saying, Elohim, make you as Ephraim and as Manasseh. Thus he put Ephraim before Manasseh. And Israel said to Joseph, see, I am dying, but Elohim shall be with you and bring you back to the land of your fathers. And I have given to you one portion above your brothers, which I took from the hand of the Amorite with my sword and with my bow. Genesis chapter 49. And Jacob called his sons and said, gather together so that I declare to you what is to befall you in these last days. Gather together and hear, you sons of Jacob, and listen to Israel, your father, Reuben. You are my firstborn, my power, and the beginning of my strength, the excellency of exaltation and the excellency of power. Boiling like water, you do not excel because you went up to your father's bed, then you defiled it. He went up to my couch. Simon and Levi are brothers. Their weapons are implements of violence. Let my being not enter their council. Let my esteem not be united to their assembly, because they killed a man in their displeasure, and they lamed an ox in pleasure. Cursed be their displeasure, for it is fierce, and their wrath, for it is cruel. I divide them in Jacob and scatter them in Israel. You, Judah, your brothers praise you. Your hand is on the neck of your enemies. Your father's children bow down before you. Judah is a lion's cub. From the prey you have gone up, my son. He bowed down, he crouched like a lion, and like a lion, who does rouse him? The scepter shall not turn aside from Judah, nor an inscriber from between his feet until Shiloh comes, and to him is the obedience of peoples. Binding his donkey to the vine, and his donkey's colt to the choice vine, he washed his garments in wine, and his robes in the blood of grapes. His eyes are darker than wine, and his teeth whiter than milk. Zebulun dwells at the seashore. He is for a haven for ships, and his border is unto Sidon. Issachar is a strong donkey lying down between two burdens, and he saw that a resting place was good, and that the land was pleasant, and he inclined his shoulder to bear a burden and become a subject to slave labor. Dan rightly rules his people as one of the tribes of Yisrael. Dan is a serpent by the way, an adder by the path, that bites the horse's heels so that its rider falls backwards. I have waited for your deliverance, O Yahovah! Gad is a raiding band, raids him, but he raids its heel. Bread from Asher is rich, and he gives delicacies of a sovereign. Naphtali is a deer let loose. He gives words of elegance. Joseph is an offshoot of a fruit-bearing tree, an offshoot of a fruit-bearing tree by a fountain. His branches run over a wall, and the archers have bitterly grieved him, shot at him, and hated him. But his bow remained in strength, and the arms of his hands were made strong by the hands of the mighty one of Jacob. From there is the shepherd, the stone of Yisrael, from the El of your father who helps you, and by the Almighty who blesses you with blessings of the heavens from above, blessings of the deep that lies beneath, blessings of the breasts and of the womb. The blessings of your father have excelled the blessings of my ancestors up to the limit of the everlasting hills. They are on the head of Joseph and on the crown of the head of him who was separated from his brothers. Benjamin is a wolf that tears. In the morning he eats prey, and at night he divides the spoil. All these are the 12 tribes of Israel, and this is what their father spoke to them. And he blessed them. He blessed each one according to his own blessing. And he commanded them and said to them, I am to be gathered to my people. Bury me with my fathers in the cave that is in the field of Ephron the Hittite, in the cave that is in the field of Machpelah, which is before Mamre in the land of Canaan, which Abraham bought with the field of Ephron the Hittite as a possession for a burial site. There they buried Abraham and Sarah his wife. There they buried Isaac and Rebekah his wife. And there I buried Leah, the field purchased, and the cave which is in it, from the sons of Heth. And when Jacob ended commanding his sons, he drew his feet up into the bed and breathed his last, and was gathered to his people. Genesis chapter 50. And Joseph fell on his father's face and wept over him and kissed him. And Joseph commanded his servants, the physicians, to embalm his father. So the physicians embalmed Israel, and 40 days were completed for him. For so were completed the days of embalming. And the Egyptians wept for him 70 days. And when the days of weeping for him were past, Joseph spoke to the household of Pharaoh, saying, If now I have found grace in your eyes, please speak in the hearing of Pharaoh, saying, My father made me swear, saying, See, I am dying, burying me in my burial site, which I dug for myself in the land of Canaan. And now, please, let me go up and bury my father in return. And Pharaoh said, Go up and bury your father, as he made you swear. And Joseph went up to bury his father, and with him went up all the servants of Pharaoh, the elders of his house, and all the elders of the land of Egypt, and all the house of Joseph, and his brothers and his father's house. Only their little ones and their flocks and their herds they left in the land of Goshen. And there went up with him both chariots and horsemen, and it was a very great company. And they came to the threshing floor of Atad, which is beyond the Jordan, and they lamented there with a great and very heavy lamentation. And he performed 7 days of mourning for his father. And when the inhabitants of the land, the Canaanites, saw the mourning at the threshing floor of Atad, they said, This is a grievous mourning for the Egyptians. That is why its name is called Avel, Egypt, which is beyond the Jordan. And his sons did to him as he had commanded them, for his sons brought him to the land of Canaan and buried him in the cave of the field of Machpelah before Mamre, which Abraham bought with the field from Ephron the Hittite as property for a burial site. And after he had buried his father, Joseph returned to Egypt, he and his brothers and all who went up with him to bury his father. And when Joseph's brothers saw that their father was dead, they said, What if Joseph hates us and pays us back all the evil which we did to him? And they sent word to Joseph, saying, Before your father died, he commanded, saying, This is what you are to say to Joseph. I beg you, please forgive the transgression of your brothers and their sin, for they did evil to you. And now please forgive the transgression of the servants of the Elohim of your father. And Joseph wept when they spoke to him. And his brothers also went and fell down before his face, and they said, See, we are your servants. And Joseph said to them, Do not fear, for am I in the place of Elohim? And you intended evil against me, but Elohim intended it for good, in order to do it as it is to this day, to keep a great many people alive. And now do not fear. I provide for you and your little ones. So he comforted them and spoke kindly to them. And Joseph dwelt in Egypt, he and his father's household. And Joseph lived 110 years. And Joseph saw Ephraim's children to the third generation. The children of Machir, son of Manasseh, were also born on Joseph's knees. And Joseph said to his brothers, I am dying, but Elohim shall certainly visit you and bring you out of this land to the land of which he swore to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob. And Joseph made the children of Israel swear, saying, Elohim shall certainly visit you, and you shall bring up my bones from here. And Joseph died, being 110 years old, and they embalmed him, and he was placed in a coffin in Egypt. On we go. Exodus chapter 1. And these are the names of the children of Israel who came to Egypt with Jacob, each one with his household: Reuben, Simon, Levi, and Judah, Issachar, Zebulun, and Benjamin, Dan, and Naphtali, Gad, and Asher. And all those who were the descendants of Jacob were 70 beings, as Joseph was already in Egypt. And Joseph died, and all his brothers, and all that generation. And the children of Israel were fruitful and increased very much, multiplied and became very strong, and the land was filled with them. Then a new sovereign arose in Egypt who did not know Joseph. And he said to his people, "See, the people of the children of Israel are more and stronger than we. Come, let us act wisely towards them, lest they increase. And it shall be, when fighting befalls us, that they shall join our enemies and fight against us, and shall go up out of the land." So they set slave masters over them to afflict them with their burdens, and they built for Pharaoh supply cities, Pithom and Ramesses. But the more they afflicted them, the more they increased and grew, and they were in dread of the children of Israel. And the Egyptians made the children of Israel serve with harshness, and they made their lives bitter with hard bondage in mortar and in brick and in all kinds of work in the field. All their work which they made them do was with harshness. Then the sovereign of Egypt spoke to the Hebrew midwives, of whom the name of one was Shiphrah, and the name of the other Puah. And he said, "When you deliver the Hebrew women, see them on the birth stools. If it is a son, then you shall put them to death. But if it is a daughter, then she shall live." But the midwives feared Elohim and did not do as the sovereign of Egypt commanded them, but kept the male children alive. So the sovereign of Egypt called the midwives and said to them, "Why have you done this and kept the male children alive?" And the midwives said to Pharaoh, "Because the Hebrew women are not like the Egyptian women, for they are lively and give birth before the midwives come to them." So Elohim was good to the midwives, and the people increased and became very numerous. And it came to be, because the midwives feared Elohim, that he provided households for them. And Pharaoh commanded all his people, saying, "Throw every son who is born into the river, and keep alive every daughter." Exodus chapter 2. And a man of the house of Levi went and married a daughter of Levi, and the woman conceived and bore a son, and she saw that he was a lovely child, and she hid him 3 months. And when she could hide him no longer, she took an ark of wicker for him, and coated it with tar and pitch, and put the child in it, and laid it in the reeds by the edge of the river. And his sister stood at a distance to know what would be done to him. And the daughter of Pharaoh came down to wash herself at the river, and her young women were walking by the riverside. And when she saw the ark among the reeds, she sent her female servants to get it, and opened it, and saw the child, and see, the baby wept. So she had compassion on him and said, "This is one of the children of the Hebrews." And his sister said to Pharaoh's daughter, "Shall I go and call a nurse for you from the Hebrew women to nurse the child for you?" And Pharaoh's daughter said to her, "Go." And the young woman went and called the child's mother. And Pharaoh's daughter said to her, "Take the child away and nurse him for me, and I shall pay your wages." So the woman took the child and nursed him. And the child grew, and she brought him to Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. And she called his name Moses, saying, "Because I have drawn him out of the water." And in those days it came to be, when Moses was grown, that he went out to his brothers and looked at their burdens. And he saw an Egyptian striking a Hebrew, one of his brothers. So he turned this way and that way. And when he saw no one, he struck the Egyptian and hid him in the sand. And he went out the second day and saw 2 Hebrew men fighting. And he said to the one who did the wrong, "Why do you strike your neighbor?" And he said, "Who made you a head and a judge over us? Do you intend to kill me as you killed the Egyptian?" And Moses feared and said, "Truly, the matter is known." And Pharaoh heard of this matter, and he sought to kill Moses. But Moses fled from the face of Pharaoh and dwelt in the land of Midian. And he sat down by a well, and the priest of Midian had 7 daughters, and they came and drew water, and they filled the troughs to water their father's flock. But the shepherds came and drove them away. Then Moses stood up and came to their rescue and watered their flock. And they came to Reuel, their father, and he said, "How is it that you have come so soon today?" And they said, "An Egyptian rescued us from the hand of the shepherds, and he also drew enough water for us and watered the flock." And he said to his daughters, "And where is he? Why did you leave the man? Call him and let him eat bread." And Moses agreed to dwell with the man, and he gave Zipporah, his daughter, to Moses. And she bore him a son and called his name Gershom, for he said, "I have become a sojourner in a foreign land." And it came to be after these many days that the sovereign of Egypt died. And the children of Israel groaned because of the slavery, and they cried out, and their cry came up to Elohim because of the slavery. And Elohim heard their groanings, and Elohim remembered his covenant with Abraham, with Isaac, and with Jacob. And Elohim looked on the children of Israel, and Elohim knew. Exodus chapter 3. And Moses was shepherding the flock of Jethro, his father-in-law, and the priest of Midian. And he led the flock to the back of the wilderness and came to Horeb, the mountain of Elohim. And the messenger of Yahovah appeared to him in a flame of fire from the midst of a bush. And he looked and saw the bush burning with fire, but the bush was not consumed. And Moses said, "Let me turn aside now and see the great sight, why the bush does not burn." And Yahovah saw that he turned aside to see. And Elohim called to him from the midst of the bush and said, "Moses, Moses." And he said, "Here I am." And he said, "Do not come near here. Take your sandals off your feet, for the place on which you are standing is set apart ground." And he said, "I am the Elohim of your father, the Elohim of Abraham, the Elohim of Isaac, and the Elohim of Jacob." And Moses hid his face, for he was afraid to look at Elohim. And Yahovah said, "I have indeed seen the oppression of my people who are in Egypt, and have heard their cry because of their slave drivers, for I know their sorrows. And I have come down to deliver them from the hand of the Egyptians, and to bring them up from the land to a good and spacious land, to a land flowing with milk and honey, to the place of the Canaanites and the Hittites and the Amorites and the Perizzites and the Hivites and the Jebusites. And now see, the cry of the children of Israel has come to me, and I have also seen the oppression with which the Egyptians oppress them. And now come, I am sending you to Pharaoh to bring my people, the children of Israel, out of Egypt." And Moses said to Elohim, "Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and that I should bring the children of Israel out of Egypt?" And he said, "Because I am with you, and this is to you the sign that I have sent you. When you have brought the people out of Egypt, you are to serve Elohim on this mountain." And Moses said to Elohim, "See, when I come to the children of Israel and say to them, 'The Elohim of your fathers has sent me to you,' and they say to me, 'What is his name?' what shall I say to them?" And Elohim said to Moses, "I am that which I am." And he said, "Thus you shall say to the children of Israel, 'I am has sent me to you.'" And Elohim said further to Moses, "Thus you are to say to the children of Israel, 'Yahovah, Elohim of your fathers, the Elohim of Abraham, the Elohim of Isaac, and the Elohim of Jacob has sent me to you. This is my name forever, and this is my remembrance to all generations. Go, and you shall gather the elders of Israel together and say to them, Yahovah, Elohim of your fathers, the Elohim of Abraham, of Isaac, and of Jacob, appeared to me, saying, I have indeed visited you and seen what is done to you in Egypt. And I say, I am bringing you up out of the affliction of Egypt to the land of the Canaanite and the Hittite and the Amorite and the Perizzite and the Hivite and the Jebusite, to a land flowing with milk and honey. And they shall listen to your voice, and you shall come, you and the elders of Israel, to the sovereign of Egypt. And you shall say to him, Yahovah, Elohim of the Hebrews, has met with us. And now, please, let us go 3 days' journey into the wilderness to slaughter Yahovah, our Elohim. But I know that the sovereign of Egypt is not going to let you go, not even by a strong hand. And I shall stretch out my hand and strike Egypt with all my wonders, which I shall do in its midst. And after that, he shall let you go. And I shall give this people grace in the eyes of the Egyptians. And it shall be that when you go, you shall not go empty-handed. But every woman shall ask from her neighbor and from the stranger in her house objects of silver and objects of gold and garments. And you shall put them on your sons and on your daughters, and shall plunder the Egyptians. Exodus chapter 4. And Moses answered and said, And if they do not believe me nor listen to my voice and say, Yahovah has not appeared to you? And Yahovah said to him, What is that in your hand? And he said, A rod. And he said, Throw it on the ground. So he threw it on the ground, and it became a serpent. And Moses fled from it. And Yahovah said to Moses, Reach out your hand and seize it by the tail. So he reached out his hand and took hold of it, and it became a rod in his hand, so that they believed that Yahovah, Elohim of their fathers, the Elohim of Abraham, the Elohim of Isaac, and the Elohim of Jacob, has appeared to you. And Yahovah said to him again, Now put your hand in your bosom. And he put his hand in his bosom. When he took it out, and see, his hand was leprous like snow. And he said, Put your hand in your bosom again. So he put his hand in his bosom again and drew it out of his bosom. And see, it was restored like his other flesh. And it shall be, if they do not believe you, nor listen to the voice of the first sign, that they shall believe the voice of the latter sign. And it shall be, if they do not believe even these 2 signs, or listen to your voice, that you shall take water from the river and pour it on the dry land. And the water which you take from the river shall become blood on the dry land. And Moses said to Yahovah, O Yahovah, I am not a man of words, neither before nor since you have spoken to your servant. For I am slow of speech and slow of tongue. And Yahovah said to him, Who has made a man's mouth? Or who makes dumb or deaf, or seeing, or blind? Is it not I, Yahovah? And now go, and I shall be with your mouth and teach you what to say. But he said, Oh, Yahovah, please send by the hand of him whom you would send. And the displeasure of Yahovah burned against Moses, and he said, Is not Aaron the Levite your brother? I know that he speaks well, and see, he is also coming out to meet you, and when he sees you, he shall be glad in his heart. And you shall speak to him, and put the words in his mouth, and I am with your mouth and with his mouth, and I shall teach you what to do. And he shall speak for you to the people, and it shall be that he shall be a mouth for you, and you shall be an Elohim for him. And take this rod in your hand with which you shall do the signs. Then Moses went and returned to Jethro, his father-in-law, and said to him, Please, let me go and return to my brothers who are in Egypt to see whether they are still alive. And Jethro said to Moses, Go in peace. And Yahovah said to Moses in Midian, Go return to Egypt, for all the men are dead who sought your life. So Moses took his wife and his sons and set them on a donkey, and he returned to the land of Egypt. And Moses took the rod of Elohim in his hand. And Yahovah said to Moses, As you go back to Egypt, see that you do all those wonders before Pharaoh, which I have put in your hand. But I am going to strengthen his heart, so that he does not let the people go. And you shall say to Pharaoh, Thus said Yahovah, Yisrael is my son, my firstborn. So I say to you, Let my son go to serve me. But if you refuse to let him go, see, I am killing your son, your firstborn. And it came to be on the way, in the lodging place, that Yahovah met him and sought to kill him. And Zipporah took a sharp stone and cut off the foreskin of her son and threw it at Moses' feet and said, You are indeed a bridegroom of blood to me. So he let him go. Then she said, You are a bridegroom of blood because of the circumcision. And Yahovah said to Aaron, Go to meet Moses in the wilderness. And he went and met him on the mountain of Elohim and kissed him. Moses then told Aaron all the words of Yahovah who had sent him and all the signs which he had commanded him. And Moses went with Aaron and gathered together all the elders of the children of Israel. And Aaron spoke all the words which Yahovah had spoken to Moses. Then he did the signs before the eyes of the people. And the people believed, and they heard that Yahovah had visited the children of Israel, and that he had looked on their affliction, and they bowed their heads and did obeisance. Exodus chapter 5. And afterwards Moses and Aaron went in and said to Pharaoh, Thus said Yahovah Elohim of Israel, Let my people go, so that they celebrate a festival to me in the wilderness. And Pharaoh said, Who is Yahovah, that I should obey his voice to let Israel go? I do not know Yahovah, nor am I going to let Israel go. And they said, The Elohim of the Hebrews has met with us. Please let us go 3 days' journey into the wilderness and slaughter to Yahovah our Elohim, lest he fall upon us with pestilence or with the sword. But the sovereign of Egypt said to them, Moses and Aaron, why do you take the people from their work? Get back to your burdens. And Pharaoh said, See, the people of the land are many now, and you make them cease from their burdens. And the same day Pharaoh commanded the slave drivers of the people and their foremen, saying, You are no longer to give the people straw to make bricks as before. Let them go and gather straw for themselves, and lay on them the required amount of bricks which they made before. Do not diminish it, for they are idle. This is why they cry out, saying, Let us go and slaughter to our Elohim. Let more work be laid on these men, so that they labor in it and not pay attention to the words of falsehood. And the slave drivers of the people and their foremen went out and spoke to the people, saying, Thus said Pharaoh, I do not give you straw. Go, take straw for yourselves wherever you find it, for your work shall not be diminished. And the people were scattered in all the land of Egypt to gather stubble for straw. And the slave drivers were hurrying them on, saying, Fulfill your actions, your daily matters, as when there was straw. Also the foremen of the children of Israel, whom Pharaoh's slave drivers had set over them, were struck and were asked, Why have you not fulfilled your law in making bricks both yesterday and today as before? And the foremen of the children of Israel came and cried out to Pharaoh, saying, Why do you treat your servants this way? There is no straw given to your servants. And they say to us, Make bricks? And see, your servants are struck, but your own people are at fault. But he said, You are idle, you are idle. That is why you say, Let us go and slaughter to Yahovah. So now go, work. And straw is not given to you, but deliver the amount of bricks. And the foremen of the children of Israel saw that they were in trouble after it was said, You